Hello to everybody out there. I am live from New York City. I am delighted to be with you today. I see I have to start by looking at a younger, more handsome version of myself, which is always intimidating, but because that guy on the screen is very good at standardized tests, I have to say. I am here to transmit some of the knowledge of that guy and to get to know you all a little bit. I love doing these webinars. I love teaching the classes. I've been teaching classes with Ready4 ever since the very beginning. Since they started doing these classes, I have taught in some form or another for, I think it's a little more than 8 years now. I've taught more than 1,000 students, and all of my students except for, I think we're at 38 of those 1,000 scored in the top 15% of test takers. There's a reason I have that kind of record. I teach in plain English. If anybody is teaching this stuff to you in jargon, in a way that you don't understand, if it's all going over your head and it's not sinking in, it's not you, it's the teacher, it's the test prep. You should get out of there, run as fast as you can from folks who use only jargon to explain test prep. I have done a bunch of different standardized tests: the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, 4 SAT2s, 7 AP exams, the LSAT, the GRE, the GMAT 4 times, and now that the GMAT is changing again, I'm going to take it again, which I'm very, very excited about. I'm going to pose as a hardworking, aspirational MBA applicant and take it again just so I can do this new shorter version, which I'm very excited about. I've taken all those tests because it's a very soothing activity for me, believe it or not. It's sort of the only part of my life where there's only one correct answer. Everything else I've done, diplomat at the State Department, I've founded 4 businesses, I have my own consulting firm. There are many possible answers. And on the GMAT, on the GRE, on these tests, there's one answer. You get to it within 2 minutes, and then you move on. It's very soothing. It's very peaceful, and I also find the activity a lot of fun. I hope you get that sense as we go through these questions, and I hope you learn to enjoy the test as much as I enjoy it. Studying should be a good time. It should be a short time, and it should be with someone you enjoy. If those 3 things are not present, you should find another test prep place. And I hope that test prep provider is us. I really hope you choose Ready4. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the new test, and let's talk about some of the secrets. So the new test is 3 hours long. Instead of having 37 questions, you're now only going to have 31 questions in quant. You're only going to have an hour. So time per question actually went down a little bit. You have to answer the questions a little more quickly than you used to, but it only lasts an hour instead of an hour and 15 minutes. The verbal used to be 41 questions, now it's 36 questions. And again, instead of having 75 minutes, now you only get just a little more than an hour. So time per question went down. You have to answer questions more quickly, but the overall, you're going to get in and out of that GMAT more quickly than you used to. The essay section and the integrated reasoning section aren't changing for right now, and you can take those essay and integrated reasoning sections in a bunch of different orders. So it used to be that you had to take the essay, and then you had to take the integrated reasoning, and then you had to take a break, and then they would haze you and throw tomatoes at you, and then you would duck, and then you would feel bad, and then you would have to take the math section right after that. Now, they've eliminated the tomatoes part. That's a joke, by the way. You don't have to actually have to endure a vegetable onslaught. It's potatoes. No, that's a joke too. So you can take the math section first, or you can take the verbal section first, and then you can take the essay and the integrated reasoning later. I recommend that. That's an easier way to go about it. The essay and the integrated reasoning are scored separately. There's a different scale. and the business schools don't care as much about those scores. It's your math and your verbal. Okay, so let me just tell you, it is a computer adaptive test. This slide you will get afterwards. You can look at it and it can mesmerize you like a lava lamp. Basically, this is just saying you have to take the questions in order. You can't skip around. And how well you do on previous questions determines the difficulty level of your next questions. There's only one rule about the computer adaptive test. Take the question in front of you, okay? If you are spending even a second worrying about how hard the question is, you're not taking the test. You're taking some other meta test where the test is inside your head and rampaging about, causing anxiety where you don't need it, okay? You only have to do the question in front of you, and that's the only question you can do. So don't think about how hard the question is, just do it, okay? Sometimes you get easy questions, sometimes you get hard questions, sometimes you get real questions, sometimes you get experimental questions. So even now, with the smaller number of questions, some of the questions won't count. They'll be experimental. They'll be questions that the GMAT is testing for another test down the road. Okay, when you don't know when those are, there's no flag saying this is an experimental question. So you just have to take the question in front of you. Just do every question one at a time. Okay, that's all there is to do. Okay, couple key strategies. Make sure you leave time at the end of the section. Ignore the apparent difficulty, which is what we just talked about, and make sure you practice with the right tools and content. Make sure you practice with stuff that's going to excite you, that's going to engage you, that's going to speak to you in plain English, and give you tips and tricks and methods to do this test as best as you can. And anybody can learn how to ace this test. I have had people come from every conceivable area of the world, every kind of background, race, creed, color, religion. It doesn't matter. This is a learned skill, and if you learn with the right people, you can do incredibly well on this test. Okay, I'm going to stop right here because I want to make sure that you get a chance to talk to me. I want this to be as interactive as possible. I don't like just lecturing. So if you could just find your question box and type in something that you want to learn today in our short time together, I will try to make sure that we address your concerns. So go ahead and type in something that you really want to learn from today's session. Remember, it's a math session, so I can't teach you all the verbal tricks, but tell me a little bit about what you want to learn. Okay, so we have, what formulas should I study and remember? That's a great question. All right. How do you manage your time? That's another great question. We will definitely talk about ways to manage the time while you're doing the test, and also how to train so that you are practicing the timed nature of the test. Actually, I'm going to answer that question right away. This is not a test of math. Okay, this is not a test of whether or not you know algebra and geometry. Guess how many times you use geometry in business school? Guess how many times you use the method of figuring out a shape and determining whether or not you need additional information for this or that? A lot. So the method that they're testing, the sort of type of thinking, the type of reasoning that is embedded in the data sufficiency question, that's what they're trying to train. It's not a math test per se. You need to know some math fundamentals. Those are pretty easy to learn. Some of you will be better at it than others, but don't just study math. It's not like you can cram a bunch of formulas in and then you're going to be good. People mistake this for a chemistry test. You're not taking a high school chemistry test. This is a standardized test. And the point of a standardized test is that it is a timed test. I always say it's not a math test, it's a timed test. Okay, if you can get the right answer, but you get it right in 6 minutes, you missed the question. And not only did you miss it, you took up the time you needed to answer 2 other questions. You only have 2 minutes a question. So remember that your job, first and foremost, is to know the fundamentals. But close behind that, your job is to do the questions in 2 minutes. As you practice sets of 5 questions and then sets of 10 questions. And make sure you put yourself on the clock. Okay, for 5 questions, you should be able to do 5 questions in 10 minutes. Everybody has 10 minutes. If you're really serious about the GMAT, you have 10 minutes in the day to do 5 questions. Okay, for 10 questions, you have 20 minutes, and that's it. To get better and better and better at the time, give yourself smaller and smaller amounts of time to do those 5 questions in 10 questions. Give yourself 8 minutes to do the 5 questions. Give yourself 16 minutes, 15 minutes to do the 10 questions. Okay, eventually you should get to a point where you can do 10 questions in some form in 11 or 12 minutes. If you can do that, you won't worry about time so much on the test. That's my strategy for time. We have the shortest way to get to the answers. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk more about formulas. Okay, there are 3 people who asked questions. That means about 18 of you haven't asked anything. If you want to chip in some questions at any time, go ahead and write those in the question box. We will move quickly, but every question that is asked will be answered. That's my rule for the class, and that's my rule for this webinar as well. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, insider's secrets. Can you all see the screen? Just if one person could say, yes, I can see the screen, and it says the insider's secrets. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, secrets of instructors who have been to top schools. So I have been to all of these schools. I went to undergrad at Yale, I went abroad at Oxford, grad school at Harvard, and MBA at MIT. And I asked some friends, what are some secrets of getting into these amazing schools, these amazing institutions? Knowing the most math won't get you into MIT. You have to know the right kind of math, and you have to be mathematically agile so that you can confidently puzzle out questions you've never seen before. It's such a good quote. I love that quote. It's exactly right, not just for MIT, but for any of the top business schools. You can't just sit down and study formulas. You have to be guided through this test by someone who has mastered it and who knows how to talk about math in plain English. If you are learning from a source that does not explain the math questions to you in a way that is totally comprehensible, ditch that source. It's not a good source. You got to learn this at the fundamental level in a way that you understand the math and could explain it back to a 12-year-old. That's a really deep level. Every one of my best professors at MIT could explain the concepts that he or she was teaching, not only to grad students, but to middle schoolers, and not lose any bit of the edge that they had in teaching. If you really know a subject, you can explain it to anybody at any level. People who are using only jargon don't know that material. Okay, I get very animated about this because there are a lot of people, especially in my field of finance and consulting, who use only jargon. Their entire lives, they propose to their girlfriends by saying, I think it is strategically advantageous for us to effect a merger and architect a solution to our mutually disagreeable expenses, upon which we should effect a 5-part strategy. And the girl is like, yes, I want that. Let's do it. But I am like, no, that's not good. That's not cool. You should just say, will you marry me? And that would be better. That would be a nicer thing to do. All right, knowing the most words won't get you into Harvard. You have to be adept at critical reasoning so that faced with brand new information, you won't be fooled by gaps in logic, specious premises, or ludicrous assumptions. Verbal is not a vocab test. Verbal is a test of logic. Okay, you got to know how arguments are put together, what a premise is, what an assumption is, and how to strengthen faulty arguments and how to weaken faulty arguments. Okay. Ambition, hope, diligence, and organization are helpful if you want to go to Yale, but the discipline to practice in a relentless, focused way can be dispositive. That's another amazing quote. You got to practice, 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 and not just practice in a distracted way. Practice in a focused way, so that when you're doing those 10 questions at a time for those 20 minutes, you're locked in. Okay, super, super important. Oxford doesn't care how long you studied. To Oxford, what matters is how well you do on the day of the exam. It's a high-stakes test. It's the nature of the test. It's a timed test. So make sure you prepare psychologically for what that test day is going to be like. I have a lot of fun on test day. That's when it's like game day. You're really excited. You're practicing all the time, and then game day, you get to go and actually perform when it matters. So if you have not had as lovely and romantic a relationship with standardized tests as I have, take the course. We'll talk a lot about the psychology of the test and how to prepare for test day so that you are at your best. Okay? All right. Good news, you're probably already great at a lot of the skills that you need to do well on the test. You're probably already great at addition, subtraction, drawing shapes, the slope of a line, how to calculate tax, knowing what zero is, that's super important. Signing into webinars, that's critical. You all did that. Some of you did that even faster than we did today. So that's great news. You'll need those skills. Here's the bad news. The GMAT knows what you're weak at. The GMAT knows where you are going to get in trouble. They're going to throw some functions at you, and they are betting that you are going to go into a little bit of a function fog. You are going to not be able to see what the question is really asking. Some of you have coma face when confronted with unfamiliar math. You're like a perfectly animated, perfectly robust and energetic human, and then you see a math question you've never seen before, and then just coma face. All right, I've seen it in students. I've seen it in perfectly great students that end up getting in the 700s. If you freeze and get into like face coma when you see unfamiliar math, we need to work that out of you. You always need to be doing something. Okay, you don't need to be talking at 1,000,000 miles a minute like a New Yorker, but your brain needs to be actively generating math ideas. And there are lots of ways to cure coma face. We will talk about all of them in the course. Arithmetic buffering, same thing as coma face, but only for arithmetic. Some of you have trauma from your previous math experiences. We can cure all of that. Some of you go too fast when you're doing arithmetic and make silly mistakes. By the way, I don't believe in silly mistakes. Silly mistakes are systematic errors that you make time and time again. And if you don't, when you say something is a silly mistake, you are telling yourself, oh, I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again. I bet you will. I bet you will unless you address it. So don't dismiss your errors as silly mistakes. Work on them. All right. Some of you also have atrophied imagination. Okay. The test is a test of creativity. Can you imagine that X is not only a positive number, but maybe it's a negative number? Maybe it's a decimal. Okay. There are a bunch of different ways to approach the questions. Okay. You can remedy any of these ills with a proper diagnosis and guidance from a great test prep program. That is us. We will help you address all of these things. Okay, the GMAT is designed to make you uncomfortable. Remember that. Knowing what's coming will put you at ease. We are going to prepare you to expect the parts of the test others find unexpected. We'll teach you the most common ways the test tries to lull you to sleep, make you lose focus, or trick you into doing more complicated math than you need. It's not a math test, it's a timed test. Ready for, we'll make sure that by test day you have confidence born from earned achievement. That's the kind of confidence that will carry you through test day and far beyond. Let's do some actual problems. Okay, two kinds of problems on the test. We have problem-solving questions and data sufficiency questions. Problem-solving questions, those are the normal ones. Data sufficiency, those are the idiosyncratic ones you'll learn more about in the class. Okay, here's one common strategy for solving problem-solving questions. Pick some numbers. So very helpful on questions with variables, questions with percentages, all kinds of questions, picking numbers. You pick small numbers that are convenient for the questions. Don't pick 0 and 1. Okay, here is a sample question. I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own. And then when you, I'm going to give you a test appropriate amount of time. I'm going to give you 1 minute and 50 seconds. I'm going to go away. I'm going to put the camera down. And then I'll come back and then we'll see how you did. All right, ready and go. Okay, everybody, we are back. I give you a little extra time. Go ahead and put your answer in the question box. Go ahead and type that in. Let's see how you did. Okay, so far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 answers, 8, 9, 10, 11 answers, and about half of you are right. So great job. I'm going to call out Mina, Winnie, Yogesh, Henry, David, Ahmed, Ajay, and Sam. Great job. Everyone else, if I did not call your name, you either have not answered and therefore you got it wrong, or you got it wrong. So let's talk about this. There are a couple ways to do this. I'll give you the easy way right now. So here's the fastest way. P lies between 0 and 1. Cool. So P could be a half, right? That lies between 0 and 1. Or maybe it's a fourth. Or maybe it's 3/4 or 0.9. Who knows? Which of the following expressions has the minimum value? Okay, so we're going to see some stuff on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to do some stuff to P, and I want to get the smallest number I can, the minimum value. Okay, first possible thing is P to the 1/2. Well, I know because I've studied my fundamentals that anything to the 1/2 is the square root of that thing. So 1/2 to the 1/2 is the square root of 1/2. That's hard. I actually don't know the square root of 1/2 off the top of my head. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use 1/4 instead, because I can use anything between 0 and 1. So 1/4 to the 1/2 is the square root of 1/4. Aha. Well, the square root of 1/4 is a half. Got it. So if you use 1/4 for P, then P to the 1/2 is 1/2. P squared is 1/16. By the way, 1/16 is smaller than 1/2. P to the negative 1/2 is 1 over P to the 1/2. 1 over 0.5, 1 over 1/2 is 2. 1 divided by 1/2 is 1 times 2. You flip the fraction in the denominator. So 1 over 1/2 is 2. So this is 2. 2 is definitely greater than 1/16. So that's not right. P is 1/4. 1/16 is smaller than 1/4. And P to the 3/2. Well, I'm going to show you how to do this, but there's an easier way to figure out why it's not D. 1/4 cubed, you square root that. 1/4 cubed is 1/64. You cube that, or you square 1/64, and you get 1/8. All right. So which is smaller, 1/16 or 1/8? Okay. There's an easier way to do it. You're raising a fraction between 0 and 1, a positive fraction, to an exponent. Well, guess what? The bigger the exponent, the smaller the number. Okay? You don't have to know that. You don't have to figure that out to find this, to solve this problem. But if you did realize that that was going on, that, you know, P squared gave you a super small number, P to the 1/2 gave you not quite as small of a number, then you would just choose the exponent that is the largest. And B has the exponent that is the largest. 2 is bigger than any of the other exponents on that menu of choices. Okay? That's a decently hard one, certainly not the hardest one. If you didn't know your exponents, we will teach you the exponents in class. If you missed it for some other reason, then take the class and we'll fix whatever reason it is that you missed it. Okay, if you got it right, very well done. Congratulations. All right, let's keep moving. All right, plugging in answer choices, another great way to solve problem-solving questions. Let's see where that comes into play. All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to do this one very quickly, but this is something that if you look at the answer choices, this question goes very fast. If you don't look at the answer choices, you are going to be trying to solve this question for days. Okay? If 1 over n minus, so if 1 over n minus 1 over n plus 1 equals 1 over n plus 4, then what could n be? I know that you can't have 0 in the denominator. That is not allowed. When you divide by 0, bad things happen. Just to you, to your family, it's terrible. Do not divide by 0. It's an awful, awful thing to happen to people. Okay, so never do that. So if you can't have 0 in the denominator, then n can't be 0. N plus 1 can't be 0, which means n can't be -1. N plus 4 can't be 0, which means n can't be -4. And now all I have to do is figure out if it's -3. All right, 1 over -3 minus 1 over -2. Is that equal to 1 over -1? Sorry, 1 over 1. So is -1/3 minus -1/2 equal to 1? Or -2. 1 over -2 minus 1 over -2 plus 1, -1. Is that equal to 1/2? -1/2 plus 1, is that equal to 1/2? You betcha. That's it. Okay, any questions on that? Any questions on that? Okay. Great. All right, sorry we keep, let's do that. Okay. All right, I'm going to do this one very quickly as well for time's sake. All right, the graph above shows what percentage of students are taking which language class as their required language elective. If these are the only available languages to take, and there are 100 sixth graders, 150 seventh graders, and 100 eighth graders, how many students take French? Well, the Frenchies are in the darkest color. So here's what we do. You have to read the graph. Reading a bar graph is really important for the integrated reasoning part of the test. All right, so the bar graph goes from about 82 down to about 25. So this is about 57. All right, a lot of you will read this graph as 80. If you read it as 80, that is okay, as long as you remembered that you underestimated. Because look at that line. That line is above 80. Definitely above 80. If you read it as 80, it's okay to be wrong, as long as you know which way you're wrong. So I'm going to be as precise as I can. So I'm going to say 82 to 25. So I'm going to say there are 57 sixth graders who take French. Here, I think seventh grade, this is like 70, I don't know, let's say 76-ish. And then this is 32. Let's say 32. So from 76 to 32, that's about 44. 44. And then in eighth grade, you have 11 here. And then this looks like 31 to me. 31? I don't know. Maybe it's 30. I don't know. Let's say 32. 32. It's definitely above 30. So 32 minus 11, so that's 21. Now, here's the thing. 57% of 100 is just 57 kids. 21% of 100 is just 21 kids. But 44% of 150 is not 44 kids. That's like about 66 kids, let's say. All right, you add those up, and I think this goes to 144. That's pretty close to 143. That's really close. Okay, if you don't do that, if you say that this line here, which is definitely not 30, if you say that that's 30, that's okay. Just remember that you underestimated. You're going to get a number between 130 and 143. Make sure you round up. That's it. That's reading graphs. Critical skill on GMAT. All right, here are some hard problem-solving questions. All right, now it's your turn. Go ahead and try this one. I'll give you another minute and 50 seconds. Okay, everybody. Looks like we got a lot of answers. A bunch of C's, which is wrong, and a bunch of E's, which is correct. So it is E. You could have gotten E in a number of different ways, but I'll tell you the easiest way, get it, is you try that first one. Try that first one. If X is a prime number, Y is so X could be 2, could be 3, could be 5. Y is a positive integer, 1, 2, something like that. And X squared plus 3Y is 72. What's Y? Well, plug in those answer choices. Plug in that first one. 3 times 4 equals 70 plus X squared equals 72. So X squared equals 72 minus 12. X squared equals 60. Aha. X squared has to be a prime number squared. Prime number squared could be 2 squared, could be 3 squared, 5 squared, so it could be 4, could be 9, could be 25. But it's not 60. Okay, if you you can go down the list or you can jump to the correct answer. So X squared plus 3 times 21 equals 72. X squared equals 72 minus 63, which is 9. And that works. And that's the only one that works. Now C will give you X squared equals 36. That means that X is positive or is plus or minus 6. Is 6 a prime number? No, it's not. Okay, check before you answer. Make sure you read the question one last time and say, is that right? Does that make sense? Okay. 3 seconds will save you quote unquote careless mistakes on 4 or 5 different questions. That's 50 points that you can get by just reading over the question one last time before you click next confirm when you answer a question. Okay, there you go. All right, let's do a couple more. All right, this is the hardest one of the deck. I want you to try it. Go ahead and you try it first. I can solve this. This needs to be solved in 2 minutes. I will give you exactly 2 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay, everybody. Sorry for all of the back and forth between every time I click on one of your answers. I I see the presentation go smaller, so I'll try to keep it try to keep that switching to a minimum. A couple of you got this right, so most of you did not. And if you didn't get the answer in 2 minutes, then again, this is not a test of math. This is a timed test. This question is designed to be solved in 2 minutes. You can solve it in 2 minutes. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to put myself on the clock right now, and let's see how long it takes me. I'm not going to speak in some sort of crazy fast way. I'm just going to speak in a normal tone of voice, and I'm going to tell you everything that I'm thinking as I'm going along. You see that? Here we go. And let's go. All right. If x is positive, okay, it tells me that x is positive. So x might be super small, it might be like 0.1, or it might be like 0.9, or it might be like some huge number like 10. All right, so x is positive. Which of the following could be the correct ordering of these things? Aha. Okay, well, 1 over x, 2x, and x squared. All right, so 1 over 0.1, that's 10. 1 over 0.9, 1 over 9/10 is 10/9. 1 over 10 is 0.1, or 1/10. 2x is 0.2. 2x here is 1.8. 2 times 10 is 20. X squared, 0.1 squared is 0.01. 0.9 squared is 0.81. And 10 squared is 100. Okay, so for 0.1, the correct ordering is the smallest is this one, the second smallest is that one, and the third smallest is that one. So let's see if that's an option. X squared, the smallest, 2x, the second smallest, 1 over x, the third smallest. So that works. For 0.9, the correct ordering is the smallest is this one, second smallest is this one, and the third smallest is that one. So x squared, the smallest, 1 over x, the second smallest, 2 over x, the third smallest. That works. Do any of these go 2x as is 2x the smallest? No. 1 and 2 are the answers. It's designed to be solved in 2 minutes or less. Your job is to solve it in 2 minutes or less. Take the Ready For course. You will learn how to solve absolutely any problem in 2 minutes or less. That's our job. That's this problem. That's any problem. How did I know to test those numbers? I didn't. Could have tested a bunch of numbers. Could have tested 2, 3, 4. But 2, 3, 4 is an extremely bad array of possible answers, or of options for x, because 2, 3, 4 probably going to give you all the same kind of answer. When they give you the number x is positive, they are saying, hey, here's a hint. Test a small fraction, a large fraction, maybe test 1, maybe test 2, maybe test a big number. Okay, the very first time I did this, I tested 0.1, 0.9, 1, 2, and 10. You can do that. That wouldn't have taken me all that much longer. But you're going to get the same answer, the same answer, because I think I probably would have. You can do 1 very quickly. You can test x equals 1 very quickly and see that when it's 1, 2x is not the smallest. Okay, 2x is not the smallest, and that's really the only thing you're trying to figure out. Can Roman numeral 3 work? It cannot work. Okay, that's it. All right, so that's how you do that one. Let's keep moving. All right, this is a combinatorics problem. I'm going to do this one for you very quickly. All right, in a room filled with 7 people, 4 have exactly 1 sibling in the room. Well, that's a weird way of saying that there are 2 pairs of twins. 4 people have exactly 1 sibling in the room. That means you got 2 brother, sister, or brother, brother, whatever. You have, let's say, the alpha twins and the beta twins. Okay? That's what that means. 4 people have exactly 1 sibling. This is what the GMAT does to you over and over again. It puts really simple stuff in super convoluted language. You need to take test prep from someone who can translate between convoluted stuff and the simple stuff. Okay, 4 people have exactly 1 sibling in the room. You got 2 pairs of siblings. You got two twins, 2 pairs of twins. All right, AA and BB. And 3 people have exactly 2 siblings in the room. That means you got the Carter triplets. You got the alpha twins, the beta twins, and the Carter triplets. Okay? And 3 people have exactly, if 2 individuals are selected from the room at random, what is the probability that those 2 individuals are not siblings? Okay, it's a combination problem. You're selecting 2 at a time. What are the odds that those 2 individuals are not siblings? Well, if I just selected 2 individuals from 7, how many ways can I do that? That's 7 factorial divided by 5 factorial, 2 factorial. So that's 7 times 6 divided by 2. That's 21 ways. So there are 21 total ways to get 2 individuals from 7. How many ways? What are the odds that those 2 individuals are not siblings? Well, the probability of not A is 1 minus the probability of A. We will learn this in the course. We'll do all of it. So the probability of something not happening is 1 minus the probability of that happening. So what's the probability that I do get siblings? Well, how many ways can I get the alpha siblings? There's only 1 way. I have 2 picks. I pick them both. How many ways can I get the beta siblings? 1 way. There's 2 of those. I have 2 choices. I got to pick them both. How many ways can I get 2 of the Carter siblings? 3, combination 2. That's 3 ways. So there are 5 ways to get siblings. Okay? There are 21 total ways to get 2 folks, and 5 of those ways are not going to work, which means 16 of those ways will work. And that's it. Okay? If this went fast for you, if the math didn't make sense, we will go over combinatorics, we'll do probability, we'll do all of it in the class. I promise you will understand it like the back of your hand by the end of the Ready For class. Okay? That is it for problem solving. Data sufficiency. We're going to do data sufficiency out the yin-yang, up the wazoo, all in all directions when we have the class. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it right now, but I will tell you it is the idiosyncratic format of the GMAT. It is the thing that people think about when they think about the GMAT. It is one of the hardest parts. It is also not that hard to learn if you're studying with someone who has done thousands and thousands and thousands of data sufficiency questions. Okay? This is a great, great practice for business school. It's great training for business. What extra information do you need to make a decision? You're the CEO. What other study should be done? What information doesn't matter? When do you not need to do the calculation? Okay, someone asked me earlier, what formulas do you need to memorize? My glib answer is not many. The more formulas you have in your head, the more you're taking the wrong test. It's not a test of formulas. This is a test of a few fundamentals, which you absolutely have to know, and a lot of junk. The junk you don't have to memorize formulas for, you just have to make sense of it. This is a sense-making test, okay? Sense-making is 100% taught. Nobody pops out of the womb knowing how to do a data sufficiency question. No one person is naturally better at data sufficiency. This stuff is taught. Make sure you are taught well by someone who has mastered this stuff. I've taken the GMAT 4 times, 770, 770, 780, 780. Do not take any advice from anybody who got less than a 760. I get to take it again and see what happens with the shorter test. I'm so excited. I haven't been as excited since the advent of the integrated reasoning section. June 1st, 2012, it was just a great day. You know how some people like line up for like the new Apple phones? A new GMAT. It's just a very exciting thing. I'm very jealous of you that you get to take the new one. It's great. So anyway, data sufficiency will remain the same. This is the format that is particular to the GMAT and very idiosyncratic. So the solving process, again, we're not going to spend too much time on this. You test statement 1 alone, then you test statement 2 alone. If you still don't have enough information to determine whether or not the statement is true, then you test them both together. That's it. So those 4 steps. Try to figure stuff out before you go into the statements. Test statement 1 alone, test statement 2 alone, test them both together. Okay, this is more, the answers are the same for every data sufficiency question. Don't spend time reading the answer choices on the GMAT. You should have those memorized before the test. Okay, here's a fun little diagram of how to do those steps that we talked about. Test statement 1 alone. If it's yes, if it is sufficient, then you're down to A and D. If it's not, down to B, C, and E, etc. down the line. Okay. All right. Picking numbers works just as well for data sufficiency as it does on problem solving. Here, so make sure you choose small numbers convenient for the specific questions, same as problem solving questions. Remember to try all different kinds of numbers, okay? Do not pick 2, 3, 4. That's the worst thing you can do. I mean, not the worst thing you can do is like murder your family and then hide it for 30 years, but since that's not an option on the GMAT, the worst thing you can do is pick the same kinds of numbers, okay? Don't do that. It's like mathematically murdering your family. It's just terrible. Don't do that, okay? Pick a positive, pick a negative, pick a fraction, pick 0, pick 1. Pick all different kinds of numbers. Diversity, strength and diversity. Okay, let me show you how this works. If x is an integer, is the absolute value of x minus 1 to the x less than or equal to 0? I'm going to give you a fun fact. The answer to every data sufficiency question you ever see is the exact same. It's true. The answer is the exact same for every data sufficiency question. The answer is, how the heck do I know? I don't know. If you get to that question mark and you know the answer, you have read the question wrong. So read it again. If x is an integer, is the absolute value of x minus 1 to the x less than or equal to, who knows? I don't know. It might be. Maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Now they're going to give you some extra information. And you're supposed to be able to say, given this information, can I tell if it definitely is less than or equal to 0? Or if it definitely isn't less than or equal to 0? If you can tell whether it is definitely less than or equal to 0, then that is enough information. Then you're good. If you can't, then if the answer to this question is still maybe yes, maybe no, then that statement is not sufficient. So if x is equal to anything, you're going to get some actual number. So here you get what's 1 to the 0 is 1. So is negative 1 less than or equal to 0? Yes, it is. It always is. If x is equal to one thing, then something, you're going to get a statement like this. Something is less than or equal to 0, or maybe you get something else and you get like 2 is, you know, maybe if you plug in, if x is 2, I don't know if this actually works, but if you plug in something and let's say you got 2 is less than or equal to 0, that's wrong. So you know that given this value for x, it's, you know, it definitely is not less than or equal to 0. That is sufficient information. Let me explain that in a little bit easier way. if they asked you, is x greater than 0? And then they told you x equals -6. Given that x equals -6, can you answer the question, is x greater than 0? Yeah, you can answer the question. That's enough information. It's definitely not. It's definitely not greater than 0. It's -6. So this is sufficient information. Okay, you're not answering yes or no. You're answering sufficient, not sufficient. So we know that statement 1 is sufficient. So we're down to A and D. How about statement 2? Well, x is less than 0, so maybe it's -1, maybe it's -2. If it's -1, then we have the absolute value of -1 minus 1 to the -1. So that's 1 minus 1 over 1. So 1 minus 1, that's 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 0? Yep. How about -2? -2 minus 1 to the -2. So that's 2 minus 1 over 1 squared. So that's 2 minus 1. That's 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 0? Nope. So given that x is less than 0, maybe this is true, and maybe it's not true. So that means statement 2 is not sufficient. And you're down to A, and that's the answer. Okay, I'm going to have you do one, and then we're going to wrap up. All right, go ahead and try this one. I'll give you a minute and 50 seconds. Go. Okay, everybody, let's see how you did. Only 4 of you have answers. Go ahead and type in your best guess right now. Type in your best guess. Okay. Only 1 person has it correct so far. Sounds like you guys need some ready for. All right. Congratulations to Winnie. She got it right. And that is the only correct answer. So let's do this quickly. If neither A nor B is 0, is 1 over A minus 1 over B equal to 20? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. What would make this equal to 20? Well, A might be 1/30th, and B might be 1/10th, because then you'd have, so that would make it 30 minus 10 is equal to 20. Cool. But A could also be anything, and B could be anything. So statement number 1 says B is equal to 3A. Okay, well, I got 1/10 is equal to 3 times 1 over 30. That's cool. But maybe B is 6 and A is 2, or B is 3 and A is 1. So if B is equal to 3A, maybe this is true, but maybe it's not. There goes A, and there goes D. Statement number 2 is interesting. That looks kind of familiar. B minus A equals 20AB. Gosh. What if I divided everything in this statement by AB? If I divided everything by AB, I'm going to end up with 1 over A minus 1 over B equals 20. Oh my gosh. That's the statement. Oh, wow. So they're asking, is your favorite food macaroni and cheese? And then the statement is, macaroni and cheese is my favorite food. That's enough information. Statement 2 is the statement. Is this thing true? And then statement 2 says, this thing is true. That's enough. And that's the answer. That's all there is. There is so little math in that. That's all you need to do. If you did more, if you went down a rabbit hole, take the class. I'll teach you how to not do that. Okay? All right. These are some extra hard data sufficiency questions. We will do max-min problems in the class. Okay? Let me show you basically how a max-min problem works. So store S sold a total of 90 copies during 7 days. Cool. So if it were distributed evenly, store S would have sold about 13 a day. And it sold different numbers of copies on any 2 days. Aha, so you can't sell 13 a day. You have to sell a different number every day. If for the 7 days, store S sold the greatest number of copies on Saturday. All right, now I'm going to write out this thing here. So the greatest number of copies on Saturday and the second greatest number of copies on Friday. Did store S sell more than 11 copies on Friday? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. So did store S sell more than 11 copies on Friday? Did store S sell 12? Could they have sold 12? Last week, store S sold 8 copies on Thursday. Okay, great. How much did they sell Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, Sunday? I don't know. How much did they sell Friday, Saturday? Who knows? That is basically Saturday could be anything. Friday has to be a little less than Saturday, but could be anything. So statement 1, not enough. Statement 2, last week store S sold 38 copies on Saturday. Aha. 38 copies on Saturday. If you sell 38 copies on Saturday, how many could you have sold 12 on Friday? Well, 12 on Friday means that's the second most. So the other days have to be 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, so you add these up. This is the most amount of. So given that you sold 38 on Saturday, could you sell 12 on Friday? Well, you add these up, and you get 20, 40. 57, right? Yeah, 57 plus 38. Is that 90? Yeah, you can definitely. So that's more than 90. So then you say, okay, so could you have sold 12 on Friday? Sure. Could you have sold 11 on Friday? And so you have to test both. Can you sell more than 11, and can you sell 11 or fewer? Maximum problems are hydraulic problems, okay? Put one thing up, pushes all the others down. You have to sell a total of 90, okay? You can sell a total of 90 by selling 38 on one day, and then 12, and then 12, and then 11, then 10, then 9, then 8, then 7, but that doesn't hit 90. You have to adjust the other ones down. There's a very particular formula we will talk about in the class, but mostly hydraulic problems, maximum problems, are logic problems. And we'll go over those in depth in the class. All right, takeaway number 1. 2 types of questions in the GMAT Quant section: problem solving and data sufficiency. Picking number strategy is commonly used. Plugging in answer choices is used in problem solving. And many questions can be simplified with the right strategy, saving crucial time. Additional practice: after every lesson, we will do some I will give you homework that refers to the official guide, and homework that refers to the Ready for GMAT practice on the app. Okay, this is stuff that is incredibly important if you want to master these skills, especially the stuff from the GMAT official guide. Those questions are written by the test makers themselves. Okay, we will go into your questions and our answers right now, but I want to tell you before we wrap up, I take this stuff seriously. I love it. I have a ton of fun with it, but it's very important to me when I teach a class that my students totally understand the material at hand. It's not just that I've done my job, I've done my lecture. I need you to understand it as well as I understand it. When you take a Ready For course, you're not just getting the material, you're getting a coach, a mentor, an expert, not just an expert, and someone who actually loves this stuff. Okay? I hope that comes through when I teach it. I hope that comes through when I take your questions and interact with you. I hope that comes through every time I show up on your screen.